Welcome to Tales from Sector 9, your portal to immersive sci-fi audio stories. If you enjoy deep space action, rogue AIs, and conspiracy theories, you're in the right place. Tap like and subscribe to keep the adventures coming. Drop a comment and tell us where in the galaxy you're listening from. Now, sit back, relax, and prepare for tonight's story. Captain Jessie Horton stood outside the domed city of Vintar Prime, watching as the black horizon of the Martian night glowed with pulse lights from the newly completed Wormhole Linear Accelerator. The year was 3050, and the possibilities felt limitless. Officially, Earth's great cosmic expansions had propelled humanity to the edges of the solar system. Yet what Jessie saw before him promised an even more audacious leap: time travel. He remembered the repeated disclaimers from the scientists. We'll keep it controlled, every jump meticulously logged and monitored. But secretly everyone whispered about Tatos, the visionary polymath behind it all. Some called him the second coming of Da Vinci, others compared him to Einstein reimagined. The label was less important than the reality. Tatos's technology, the WLA, would fling them backward in time through carefully tuned wormholes. Jessie was no typical soldier. He was an elite chrononaut, sworn to uphold what would soon be called the Accord, the new set of rules for how this technology could be used. He checked his reflection in the glass plating of the corridor. Tall and lean, with sharp features and an uncanny calm in his dark eyes. He was chosen for this mission because he followed orders without indulging in the fanfare that accompanied Tatos's feats. When Tatos unveiled the Wormhole Linear Accelerator at the ceremonial hall, luminaries from across Earth's colonies and even allied extraterrestrial delegates from the nearby star systems gathered. Hover cameras broadcast the event from every angle. A hush fell as Tatos stepped onto the stage, his silver hair pulled into a neat tail, his posture exuding both humility and monumental confidence. "This device," he said, voice resonating with unwavering clarity, "can send living beings back in time. We have completed micro-jumps, seconds, minutes, hours into the past. Now we will test the far frontier, 11,600 years ago, an era some claim was myth. Today, we shall see Atlantis." The audience erupted, not in applause but in gasps. Atlantis, that legendary city lost beneath centuries of speculation. Tatos' assertion triggered everything from utter wonder to scientific skepticism. He insisted Atlantis was no more than a rumour, but Tatos had discovered, or so he believed, evidence that the city was real, sprawling in prehistory. With the official unveiling concluded, he pressed a control sphere. The WLA's containment columns shimmered with cyan arcs of energy. The watchers braced themselves. Then came the command: initiate Chrononaut Group Alpha. The first wave of volunteers, 20 in total, stood at the dais, each wearing a chrono suit that bristled with advanced damping fields designed to protect them from the ravages of temporal flux. Jessie listened to the countdown from his vantage at the command console, heart pounding in time with the pulsing energy. The rings of the accelerator spun faster, light intensifying. Finally, there was a piercing flash, a guttural hum, and the chrononauts vanished. It took exactly 60 heartbeats, Jessie counted, before the swirling energies stabilized and telemetry from the chrononauts flickered onto the console. The group had landed in what appeared to be a wide plain. High overhead soared what their suits identified as an intact ozone layer, unspoiled and thick. Preliminary scans pointed to a massive city beyond the horizon. At first, communications were minimal. Then Captain Aria Bornell, who led the first wave, sent an encrypted broadcast. "We've made contact with locals. They revere us as gods. The city is indeed Atlantis, technologically advanced for this era, though nowhere near our present. Locals call it Atlan, in a dialect we're still decoding." The immediate reaction among Earth's leaders? chaos, awe, fear. If it was really Atlantis, what other mythic times might the WLA unravel? News agencies flung the revelation into every corner of known space, while Tatos called for immediate protocols. We must not exploit the past, we must learn from it. Within weeks, the Accord was drafted and then signed by humanity's powers, as well as several extraterrestrial civilizations who recognized the danger of letting time travel run amok. The core principle was to observe, document, and only lightly intervene to preserve key events, never to rewrite them. Jessie, recognized for his leadership under pressure, was promoted to field commander of the Echelon Vanguard, a specialized group of chrononauts that would respond to any crisis in the timeline. And crises, Tatos warned, were inevitable. It was only a month after the initial jump that disturbing phenomena started. People reported cities that blinked out of existence. Others developed jarring new memories, as if they'd lived entire alternate histories. This phenomenon, dubbed the Shimmer event, baffled even Tatos. Jessie was in the Echelon Vanguard training facility on Earth's moon when alarms blared. Monitors displayed a massive wave of chronometric anomalies racing outward from an undersea region near the mid-Atlantic Trench. It corresponded almost exactly to the location that would, in thousands of years, become submerged Atlantis. Tatos summoned Jessie for an urgent briefing. The older man, eyes rimmed with exhaustion, admitted that the first group of chrononauts might be pushing Atlantean society too far, too quickly. Their advanced knowledge risked altering Earth's entire timeline. Possibly some catastrophe in Atlantis was rewriting the future. "You must find out what is happening," Tatos said, voice tight. "Discover how Atlantis is reacting to our presence. If something has changed the natural order of events, we must either rectify it or find a way to contain it." Jessie accepted the mission. Despite his loyalty to the Accord, an uneasy knot settled in his gut. The Shimmer event was proof that meddling in the ancient past could unravel the present, and he was about to journey back to 11600 BCE, back to a civilization that might already be too entangled with advanced knowledge from the future. He stepped onto the accelerator platform with his chosen team. Explorers, historians, exobiologists, each a vital cog in the operation. As the WLA whirred to life, an undercurrent of anxiety thrummed in the air. They were about to cross a threshold that no mission had tackled before, investigating the consequences of time meddling on a grand scale. When the wormhole opened, Jessie glimpsed swirling fractal patterns, as though the cosmos itself had been braided into an endless tapestry. Then, in a swirl of brilliant light, he and his team vanished, hurtling centuries into humanity's forgotten dawn. Unbeknownst to them, these first steps into ancient Atlantis would trigger a series of fateful events, culminating in a conflict that might extend far beyond Earth. For in the labyrinth of time, the line between saviour and tyrant can blur in an instant, and the ripple of a single choice can echo across millennia. Jessie's re-entry into prehistory was jarring. One moment he felt the rhythmic hum of the WLA, the next the crisp, untainted air of a world unspoiled by centuries of industrialization. His chronosuit readouts confirmed the date as 11600 BCE. A wide sky stretched above, a dome of stars more vivid than any modern Earth night. He looked around at his companions, 8 men and women, plus a pair of Andarian observers from Earth's closest alien allies. Each had the same awe-stricken look. In the distance, clusters of lights flickered. That had to be Atlantis. Unlike the first Chrononaut wave, Jessie's Echelon Vanguard found the city's outskirts heavily guarded. Tall spires glimmered under the moonlight, an architecture both primitive in craftsmanship and impressively grand in concept. Strange metallic surfaces in the city's core hinted at the modifications introduced by the earlier chrononauts. The group advanced cautiously. Word had spread among the Atlanteans of visitors from the sky who bore powers beyond comprehension. As Jessie and his team arrived, they were met by an entourage of Atlantean guards in ornate armour. Among them stood a man whose bearing and richly embroidered cloak marked him as someone important. He introduced himself in halting but recognisable English, thanks to the linguistics training the original Chrononauts had shared. "I am Amon-Ra, warrior priest to the High Temple of Light. We know you come from beyond the horizon of time." He bowed stiffly. "Our city awaits you." A ripple of surprise passed through Jessie's team. The infiltration of modern ideas was more advanced than they expected. Amon-Ra escorted them past a grand courtyard where marble statues depicted robed figures holding orbs of light. Shadows flickered in torchlight, revealing stylized images reminiscent of star maps. But tension was palpable. Along the walls were discrete signs of damage, scorch marks and etched glyphs that might indicate sabotage. Jessie's instincts sharpened. Something was brewing in Atlantis, and it went beyond mere technological uplift. At the heart of the city, beneath a massive ziggurat, the Echelon Vanguard discovered what Amon-Ra called the Vault of Truth. It was clearly of modern design, steel-reinforced columns, data interfaces that only chrononauts or similarly advanced users could operate. Inside, they found a trove of records about alternate timelines. Holotapes documented possible futures in which the WLA was never created, or in which Tatos never existed. Others showed scenarios where humanity perished under nuclear war centuries earlier. It was as if the first Chrononaut wave had stashed every scrap of time research here. Seraphon appeared without warning. The manifestation was like a holographic projection, but more profound. He was tall, slender, with elongated limbs and patterns on his skins that shimmered as though they belonged to a higher dimension. "Jessie Horton," Seraphon spoke gently, though his voice reverberated. "I am Seraphon, an envoy of the Eliari. We exist outside your linear time, observing events across parallel streams." The revelation startled Jessie's team. They knew of rumours that certain alien species had more advanced temporal perception, but to have one appear unannounced was unsettling. Seraphon's expression was grave. "Your attempts to guide ancient Atlantis risk the collapse of the causal convergence point. There is a threshold where the continuum must remain stable. Each incursion from your future unravels the weave of possibility." Jessie felt a spark of frustration. "We formed the Accord to prevent that very thing." Seraphon's eyes flickered. "But not all among you respect the Accord." Later that night, while the team attempted to decode the vault's deeper data, an explosion rocked the ziggurat. An entire wing of the Atlantean archives collapsed, sending plumes of dust and debris into the air. Jessie sprinted out into the courtyard, weapon at the ready. Standing amid the chaos was a tall figure in advanced chrono armour, Rex Varion. Once a revered Time General under Tatos' command, Varion had apparently gone rogue. Even from a distance, Jessie recognised the symbol on Varion's pauldron, a stylized Ouroboros, the serpent devouring its own tail. Varion glared at Jessie. "We wasted time with Tatos' naive guidelines. History isn't meant to be observed. It's there to be guided by those with the will to do so. Bow to me, Captain, or watch your precious timeline colour." He gestured to a device behind him, a smaller though no less dangerous prototype of the WLA. It crackled with uncontained energy. If it activated, it could create fractures in the timeline on a massive scale, essentially opening multiple time gateways at once. Amon-Ra ran forward, staff in hand, chanting prayers for protection, but Varion's machine erupted in a burst of swirling light that tore across the courtyard like fissures in reality. Jessie shielded his face as multiple shimmering portals flickered in and out, each leading to an alternate version of Earth's history. Through the rifts, glimpses of different epochs bled into one another. a medieval fortress side by side with futuristic towers, soldiers in 18th century uniforms charging across a battlefield patrolled by robotic drones. The multiversal schism had begun. Seraphon's voice echoed in Jessie's mind. "Stop him, or all threads may unravel." Jessie stared at Varion, who offered a final sneer before stepping into one of the swirling portals. As the rifts continued to multiply, the Echelon Vanguard realised they were facing a conflict that no single timeline could contain. It was a war not for land or ideology, but for time itself. Back in 3050, the Accord's main headquarters, Accord Prime, stood as a gleaming citadel of diplomacy and research. Within days of Varion's betrayal in Atlantis, this centre of interplanetary cooperation was hit by waves of reality-disrupting attacks. Varion's chrono-legions, as they called themselves, poured out of rifts spanning centuries. One moment, Accord Prime was protected by next-gen energy shields and satellite defences. The next, those defences winked out as entire tech grids flickered from existence, replaced by archaic steam engines or simply nothing at all. People in the city streets screamed as structures phased in and out, sometimes replaced by monolithic temples or landscapes from Earth's forgotten past. Tatos himself was last seen racing into a hidden vault beneath the citadel. Rumours claimed he had more secret knowledge gleaned from the Eliari, that he was trying to salvage critical data, but no one could confirm his fate after the main tower collapsed under a surge of temporal distortion. Jessie and a handful of Echelon Vanguard members managed to return to 3050 through an unsteady portal. They arrived in time to witness Accord Prime crumbling. In the chaos, they realised the entire Accord Council, those who had governed time travel's usage, were either dead or unaccounted for. A wave of despair rippled through Jessie. Tatos had warned them that meddling with the past could lead to devastation. Now Earth and its allied worlds were on the verge of fracturing into multiple incompatible realities. With no central leadership, the dream of a regulated timeline was collapsing before his eyes. In a desperate bid to restore order, Jessie and the Vanguard rallied any remaining chrononauts and volunteer soldiers. They formed strike teams, each assigned to a major breach in time. These rifts manifested everywhere, sometimes in the middle of an ocean, sometimes in remote farmland. Jessie's team ended up in a bizarre composite reality, a portion of Earth that looked like a mosaic. To one side, the Roman Empire persevered into a future era, now employing laser weaponry gleaned from stolen chronotech. On another front, feudal Japan had harnessed advanced AI, forging mechanical samurai that roamed the countryside. In yet another corner, a World War I scenario replayed with antimatter tanks. Everywhere they turned, the environment was a tapestry of times jumbled together. The sky itself flickered with multiple suns and constellations that made no astronomical sense. The fundamental laws of cause and effect were unraveling. Under these conditions, standard warfare was nearly impossible. The strategy pivoted. Each strike team's mission was not to conquer or hold territory, but to identify and destroy the root cause of each rift. Intel suggested that Varion had anchored multiple proto-WLAs in these time fragments, each fueling the schism. Jessie, armed with a specialised device Tatos had developed, led his team to one such anchor site, hidden beneath a twisted version of the Roman Colosseum. Varion's machine hummed with arcane energies guarded by legionnaires outfitted with advanced suits. After a harrowing confrontation, Jessie managed to deactivate the device, watching it collapse into itself with a scintillating flash. One down, countless more to go, but each rift shut down brought them closer to confronting Varion and to the ultimate nexus fueling this entire crisis. It is still believed to be ancient Atlantis. Signs of hope arrived unexpectedly. Amon-Ra, the Atlantean warrior priest, managed to slip through a partial portal into the battered present. He'd been grievously wounded in a skirmish with Varion's forces, but brought critical intelligence. "There is a point beneath Atlantis," he explained between laboured breaths. "A place called the Nexus Well. Varion's greatest anchor resides there." Jessie felt his heart pound. Of course, Atlantis was the birthplace of this crisis. If Varion could harness enough energy from the Nexus Well, he could keep fracturing timelines indefinitely. Amon-Ra recounted how the Atlantean High Temple had discovered an ancient phenomenon deep below their city, a natural confluence of geomagnetic forces. The Chrononauts who first arrived likely recognized it as a potent source of stable wormhole energy, but Varion was using it for far more sinister ends. "To stop him, we must separate Atlantis from the rest of the timeline," Amon-Ra said solemnly. "We must seal it away." The plan sounded unthinkable, yet Tatos had apparently left instructions for a last resort measure, a zero-shell pocket. This process would envelop Atlantis in a localized stasis bubble, effectively cutting it off from every other reality. The cost would be immeasurable. Countless Atlanteans and possibly Chrononauts would be trapped inside forever. But with the timeline on the brink of total collapse, the choice was stark. Permit Varion to continue ravaging centuries, or isolate Atlantis to save what remained of history. Jessie's initial revulsion softened into grim resolve. The Accords had always been about limiting harm. Now, ironically, they faced a scenario where the only way to preserve infinite possibilities was to remove an entire city, an entire civilization, from the cosmic stage. As they prepared for the final incursion, Tatos reappeared briefly through a battered comm channel, face etched with desperation. He revealed one last thing. He had known this crisis was a possibility. In fact, the entire concept of an Accord was, in part, a test of humanity's ability to handle time travel without succumbing to tyranny. Jessie felt shock and a muted betrayal. Had Tatos played them all, orchestrating these events to see how they would respond? The why might remain elusive. All Jessie knew was that Varion had to be stopped, and that Tatos's cryptic designs had placed them on this collision course with destiny. No matter the final outcome, the Great Lockdown beckoned, a last stand in the swirling labyrinth of times. And so, with the battered remains of the Vanguard at his side, Jessie readied himself for the fight that would determine the fate of every past, present and future that ever was or ever could be. In the bleak aftermath of so many lost souls and truncated timelines, Jessie led his combined forces, Echelon Vanguard, Amon-Ra's Atlantean warriors, and a handful of reformed Chrononaut rebels, down into the heart of Atlantis. The subterranean complex called the Nexus Well was a marvel of swirling energies. Varion had constructed a labyrinth of corridors lined with shimmering panels that pulsed with temporal energy. As Jessie navigated the corridors, Seraphon once again appeared, this time more corporeal, his luminous aura crackling with tension. "Time is short. Each moment we remain here, the rifts expand." They pushed deeper until they reached a central chamber, dominated by concentric rings of glyph-covered stone, glowing with an otherworldly brilliance. Tatos stood near the centre, battered and weary. How he managed to slip back into ancient Atlantis, none of them knew. His eyes were sunken, but they burned with an intense clarity. "Tatos," Jessie began, voice echoing in the cavern, "why didn't you warn us this was possible? You've brought us to the edge of oblivion." A strange calm graced Tatos's features. "I was warned long ago by a being much like Seraphon. The Eliari told me I was a temporal anchor. I've lived this same life, this same chain of events, in multiple iterations, always searching for the timeline where humanity ascends without devolving into tyranny." Jessie's stomach clenched. "So this was the test? You used us as pawns?" "I used myself," Tatos corrected. Every time I'm reborn, I retain fragments of memory. The creation of the WLA was never about mere curiosity. It was a necessity. If we are to evolve beyond our destructive impulses, we must confront the ultimate power, rewriting history. And if we fail, we doom ourselves over and over again. A wave of conflicting emotions surged through Jessie. He wanted to accuse Tatos of playing God, but a part of him saw the twisted logic. If Tatos was indeed an anchor across timelines, this struggle was as much his fate as it was humanity's. Their conversation was cut short by the arrival of Varion, who stepped through a portal leading deeper into the complex. He had augmented himself with technology stolen from multiple eras. Pulsing nanite threads coiled around his arms, and his gaze blazed with an unholy determination. "You let me walk this path, Tatos," Varion snarled, "because you wanted to see if humanity could resist my vision. But what if I'm the one who is right? Why shouldn't we shape time to our advantage? Why bow to the illusions of fate when we can be fate itself?" Jessie aimed a chrono disruptor at Varion, but the rogue general flicked his wrist, creating a temporal distortion that twisted the weapon from Jessie's hand. Battle erupted. Amon Rue and the Atlantean warriors attacked in a flurry of strikes. Seraphon released bolts of fifth-dimensional energy that crashed against Varion's shield. Amid the chaos, Tatos roared over the clamour. "Jessie! The zero-shell pocket! It must be activated now!" He pointed to a hidden console near the swirling energies. Jessie sprinted for it, diving to avoid a blast from Varion's gauntlet. Once he reached the console, he saw the final command Tatos had prepared. Warning, this process is irreversible. He hesitated. Activating it would seal Atlantis in a bubble, along with everyone inside, Amon Rue, Varion, Tatos, even Jessie himself. Countless Atlanteans would be cut off from the rest of history, forging a sealed timeline. But if he failed to do it, Varion's expansions would tear reality apart. Amon Rue, mortally wounded yet still standing, locked eyes with Jessie. "My people have always believed in the cyclical nature of life. If we must vanish so that all other timelines may flourish, so be it. This is the final stand I was born to make." Jessie placed his hand on the console, glancing one last time at Varion, who fought tooth and nail to wrench control of the Nexus, and at Tatos, who wore an expression of solemn acceptance. Jessie pressed the activation sequence. A thunderous quake rattled the chamber. The symbols etched into the stone floor glowed, forming a rotating sphere of shimmering translucent energy. Varion howled in rage, trying to escape, but the swirling energies closed in, locking the city in a luminescent barrier. In those final moments, as the bubble's walls intensified, Varion lunged at Jessie with a savage cry, but an eruption of pure force dragged him into the vortex. Jessie felt a wrenching tug as space and time twisted, and then everything froze. Far away from Atlantis, the fracturing rifts across Earth and its colonies winked shut. The moment the zero-shell pocket stabilized, the timeline reasserted itself. In 3050, cities flickered back into existence, or were re-anchored to the present. Families that had been torn apart by temporal chaos found themselves reunited. The Accord, though decimated, still had a few surviving members. They regrouped in a makeshift council hall. From data logs, they confirmed that Atlantis and everyone within had been sealed away. Varion's threat was gone. The timeline for now was safe, but Tatos had vanished. No one knew if he was destroyed, imprisoned, or simply transcended. A final recorded message from him existed on the command network. "We stand at the threshold of possibility. Whether this iteration is a success or failure is up to you now. The future, your future, has been reclaimed." Jessie was declared lost, a hero who sacrificed himself for all timelines. The new leadership debated how to honour him, eventually deciding to maintain the Echelon vanguard in memory of his resolve. They embraced a simpler principle for the future: observe but never reign. No more illusions of controlling the past. The trauma of the schism served as a stark warning. Playing with time was akin to playing with cosmic fire. And so the age of the Accord resumed, tempered by sorrow and gratitude. The galaxy had skirted the brink of irreparable meltdown. In the end, only humility in the face of time's grand design saved them. Centuries later, the world had changed once more. The year was 3450, though the exact count was less important than the peace that now prevailed. Earth had rebuilt, forging lasting alliances with the Andarians and other interstellar nations. Mention of time travel was relegated to hushed archives, and the WLA technology was rumoured to have been dismantled, at least in official channels. On a distant shore, waves lapped gently against sand dunes that stretched for miles. A young girl named Ray wandered, searching for shells and curious trinkets. The sky was a brilliant tapestry of colours. An advanced terraforming project had stabilised the climate, ensuring mild days and star-filled nights. Ray paused when something in the sand caught her eye, an angular piece of metal, half buried. She crouched and brushed away the grains, revealing a badge of sorts, a relic clearly not from her era. Engraved upon it was the symbol of the Echelon Vanguard, and in faded letters the name. She'd never heard of such a figure. The name meant nothing to her. Yet touching the cold metal sparked an inexplicable warmth in her chest, as if some distant echo of a heroic sacrifice reverberated across centuries. In that moment, Ray felt a sudden hush all around her, like the very air paid homage to what she'd found. She turned it over, noticing the words inscribed on the back: "Observe, but never reign." Though she couldn't decipher the phrase's significance, her young mind tingled with curiosity. She slipped the badge into her pocket and continued down the shoreline, dreaming up stories about who Jessie Horton might have been. Unbeknownst to her, the timeline that once was threatened now thrived. No sign of Atlantis or the schism blemished the horizon. In a parallel dimension, perhaps still sealed, Atlantis lay suspended, locked in an unending moment, its people frozen in an eternal stand. Varion's rage, Tatos' calculations, Seraphon's watchful gaze, and Jessie Horton's final act of defiance all coexisted in that pocket of lost time. Somewhere in the cosmic scale of existence, a faint ripple might still echo from that sacrifice, a gentle hum that occasionally resonates with those who stand at the thresholds of discovery. For time in its vast tapestry remembers everything, every hero, every villain, every sacrifice woven together into an ever-evolving mosaic that shapes the present. And if you, dear reader, pause to wonder whether echoes of the ancient city might one day return, rest assured, the timeline, like the ocean, keeps its secrets close. Occasionally it may offer a fragment, a badge in the sand, a fleeting vision in a dream, to remind us that in our quest for power, we must always temper ambition with responsibility. For in the end, the tapestry of time is both wondrous and fragile. To tamper with its threads is to hold the fate of countless lives in one's hands. Yet to defend it, to honour the natural course of events, that is the duty of anyone who dares to peer beyond the veil. So wherever in the world you find yourself reading or listening to these words, keep a vigilant heart. Be mindful of those who would seize time as a plaything, and of those who would sacrifice everything to protect it. The Tatos Accord remains, in spirit if not in name, a testament to the balance we must uphold. And that, brave insomniacs, is the story of the Tatos Accord. May it serve as both caution and inspiration for any soul who dreams of shaping destiny. Remember that the mightiest power lies not in conquering the past, but in honouring the present and safeguarding the possibility of tomorrow. Red Genesis, the lost vault of Mars. The Ares Vallis stretched before them, a magnificent desolation painted in 1,000 shades of ochre and rust under the thin salmon-pink sky of Mars. Commander Kyle Vance shielded his eyes, the visor of his NASA-issue exploration suit automatically polarizing against the distant sun's glare. 10 miles back, nestled against the ochre cliffs, sat the gleaming silver needles of the Arclight flotilla, humanity's first permanent foothold on another world, a joint SpaceX-NASA venture carrying 100 souls poised on the edge of history. But out here, amidst the wind-scoured rocks and dunes sculpted by millennia of Martian weather, history felt immediate, raw, tangible. "Surface reading stable, Commander," crackled the voice of Corin Wells, the mission's linguist and comms specialist, his usual irreverent tone slightly muted by the static. Seismic sensors picking up some low-frequency rumbles, probably just settling strata, but nothing anomalous. "Copy that, Corin," Kyle replied, his gaze sweeping the horizon. He was a man carved from discipline and experience, an exobiologist by training but a leader by necessity. The ghosts of a past mission, one that hadn't returned intact, shadowed his thoughts even here, light years from Earth. Duty was his anchor. Amir, Sora? Anything on the subsurface scans? Dr. Amir Duran, the geologist whose infectious enthusiasm for ancient rocks rivaled a child's on Christmas morning, knelt beside a stratified outcrop, his gloved hand tracing patterns invisible to the untrained eye. Incredible layering, Kyle. Aeolian deposits, fluvial channels. This valley saw water, real flowing water, for longer than our models predicted. But the ground-penetrating radar, it's odd. Lieutenant Sora Kim, the youngest of the quartet but a prodigy in systems engineering and resonance technology, adjusted the portable GPR unit. Her movements were precise, economical, her quiet intensity a counterpoint to Amir's effervescence. "There's significant interference, Commander, a dense mass about 50 meters down, metallic composition, but fractured, almost porous. It's scrambling the deeper signals." She tapped a control on her wrist interface, and the background radiation just ticked up slightly. Not dangerous, but noticeable. Kyle frowned. Anomalies weren't unexpected. Mars was a geological enigma, but scrambled signals and rising radiation hinted at something more complex. He checked the mission chronometer. They had another hour before needing to head back to the long haul, their pressurized rover parked half a mile away. "Keep monitoring, Sora." "Amir, anything visually distinct about that layer?" Before Amir could answer, Corin's voice cut in, sharp with urgency. "Commander, base is reporting a sudden intensification of atmospheric particulates southwest quadrant. Wind speeds increasing exponentially. They're calling it a Class 8, potentially 9 dust storm, developing much faster than forecast. ETA, 15 minutes. A chill, colder than the Martian air, snaked down Kyle's spine. Class 9 was unheard of, a planet-enveloping monster capable of blinding sensors, shredding equipment and lasting for weeks. 15 minutes? They wouldn't even make it back to the rover. "All personnel, immediate recall to the long haul, double time," Kyle commanded, his voice tight. "Corin, maintain comms link with base as long as possible." The sky, moments before a serene canvas, began to curdle. The distant horizon dissolved into a roiling wall of crimson dust, advancing with terrifying speed. The wind rose from a whisper to a howl, plucking at their suits, kicking up stinging clouds of regolith. Visibility plummeted. "Can't see the rover," Sora shouted over the wind's mounting shriek. "Follow my beacon!" Kyle activated his suit's emergency locator, a pulsing green light barely penetrating the swirling chaos. They stumbled forward, leaning into the gale, the world reduced to a maelstrom of red. Sand scoured their visors, the roar outside deafening even through their helmets. Static exploded in Kyle's ears. "Corin, status!" "Link, gone! Commander!" Corin gasped, fighting for footing. "Signal, totally, occluded!" They were cut off, blind, exposed. The long haul was likely already being buried. Panic threatened, cold and sharp. Kyle shoved it down. "Sora, that anomaly you detected, how far?" "Maybe 200 meters, bearing 075, she yelled back, her voice strained. "The radiation, it's spiking near there." "Amir, any surface structures? Overhangs? Caves?" Kyle scanned desperately through the blinding dust. "Negative. Just open ground and wait." Amir pointed, his voice filled with disbelief. "There! Look!" Through a momentary thinning of the dust, Kyle saw it. A shape, stark against the red chaos. Not natural. A perfectly smooth black tetrahedral spire, easily 30 meters tall, partially buried in the sand, its edges impossibly sharp. It seemed to absorb the dim light, yet pulsed with a faint internal luminescence, almost like veins beneath dark skin. It hummed. A low thrum felt more in the bones than heard. "What in God's name?" Corin breathed. "Shelter! Now!" Kyle ordered, pushing them toward the impossible structure. The wind tore at them, threatening to rip them from their feet. The air was thick with abrasive dust, visibility near zero. They reached the base of the monolith, pressing against its cool, unnervingly smooth surface. The hum intensified, vibrating through their suits. "There!" Amir shouted, pointing along the base where the wind had scoured away the sand. "An opening! A doorway!" It wasn't a doorway in any conventional sense. More like a section of the black material had retracted or dissolved, revealing a darker void within. Geometric symbols unlike anything Kyle had ever seen. Sharp angles, nested spirals, lines that seemed to shift and flow like liquid mercury, glowed faintly around the threshold. They pulsed in time with the structure's hum. "Radiation is higher here but stable," Sora reported, her voice tight with a mixture of fear and awe. "The structure seems to be shielding us somewhat from the storm." The wind howled like a banshee. Staying outside was suicide. Inside was the unknown, an alien structure buried for potentially millions of years, humming with strange energy. Kyle looked at his team. Amir's wide, incredulous eyes, Sora's focused analysis even now, Corin's hand hovering over the sidearm they all carried but had never expected to use. His responsibility weighed heavier than the Martian gravity. "Okay," Kyle said, his voice steady despite the tremor he felt inside. "Sora, take point with the scanner. Amir, stick close. Corin, watch our 6, if 6 even applies in there. Weapons ready, safety's on, we go in, slowly." He took a breath, the recycled air suddenly feeling thin. Stepping across the glowing threshold was like passing through a thin film of energy. The roar of the storm outside instantly muted, replaced by the deep, resonant hum of the structure. They stood in a corridor seemingly carved from the same obsidian material as the exterior. The air was still, cool, and carried a faint metallic tang. Panels along the walls glowed with the same internal light, casting long, eerie shadows. The corridor stretched forward into darkness, the floor sloping gently downwards. The strange, fluid symbols flowed along the walls, pulsing softly. Behind them, the opening remained, a rectangle of swirling crimson fury against the sudden, profound silence. They were inside. They were safe from the storm, but they had just stepped into a mystery far deeper and potentially more dangerous than any Martian tempest. The Vault of Tharis had claimed them. The silence was immense, broken only by the thrumming resonance that seemed to emanate from the very fabric of the structure and the amplified sounds of their own breathing within their helmets. corridor descended, its obsidian walls swallowing the beams of their helmet lamps almost greedily. The geometric symbols flowed alongside them, shifting subtly, rearranging themselves as if reacting to their presence. "These glyphs," Corin murmured, running a gloved hand near but not touching, a particularly intricate spiral. "They're not static. They resemble complex circuit diagrams, but also language, syntactic structures. See the repetition, the modifiers." Even in the face of the utterly alien, his linguist's mind was dissecting, analysing. "It's like Egyptian hieroglyphs designed by a quantum physicist." "Energy readings are off the scale," Sora reported, her voice hushed with awe. She gestured with her scanner. "The walls themselves are conducting power, flowing from deeper within, and the air. Trace analysis shows noble gases, argon, neon, but negligible carbon dioxide or oxygen, perfectly sterile, preserved." The corridor opened abruptly into a space so vast it stole their breath. They stood on a balcony, a precipice overlooking an abyss filled with impossible structures. Below them, bathed in the soft internal luminescence radiating from countless panels and glowing lines etched into the architecture, lay a city. An underground metropolis stretching further than their lights could penetrate, descending layer upon layer into the Martian crust. It wasn't built, it was carved. Towers spiraled downwards instead of up. Bridges of crystalline light arched across chasms thousands of feet deep. Buildings shaped like inverted pyramids, multifaceted jewels, and organic flowing sculptures clustered in intricate patterns. Walkways wider than Terran highways snaked between them, occasionally illuminated by floating spheres of light that drifted like captive stars. The scale was inhuman, dwarfing anything ever conceived on Earth. London, Tokyo, New York, they would be mere suburbs in this subterranean behemoth. "My God," Amir whispered, gripping the railing, his knuckles white even through the suit glove. It's Karnak meets Coruscant." "No signs of life," Sora stated, her scanner sweeping the panorama. "No heat signatures, no movement except..." She paused. "Faint energy surges like dormant systems powering up, sequentially, following our path." As if on cue, a section of the city directly below them brightened. Lines of light traced intricate patterns across building facades, and one of the floating spheres detached itself from the distant gloom and drifted slowly towards their balcony. "Okay, definitely reacting to us," Corin said, a nervous edge sharpening his wit. "Either it's welcoming the new neighbours, or the security system is waking up. Place your bets." Kyle scanned the immensity, his tactical mind racing. This wasn't just ruins, it felt poised, waiting. "Let's find a way down. Look for a central structure, maybe a control hub." They located a ramp spiralling gently down from the balcony, wide enough to accommodate vehicles far larger than their rover. As they descended, more lights activated ahead of them, illuminating their path, while the areas behind them dimmed slightly. The air remained still, cool, the resonant hum a constant companion. They passed structures that defied easy categorization. Some resembled vast public squares, empty save for geometric fountains carved from the same obsidian material, their basins dry but intricately detailed. Others looked like marketplaces or grand halls, filled with alcoves and platforms, silent and deserted. The architecture was a baffling fusion. The stark geometry of the exterior mixed with flowing, almost biological curves, adorned with those ever-present shifting glyphs. After an hour of descent, they reached a lower level, a wide plaza opening onto several colossal hangar bays carved directly into the cavern wall. Inside, suspended in Silevoy pole, guessing force field or stasis, that shimmered faintly, were ships. Starships. They weren't the functional cylinders or winged craft of human design. These were sleek manta-ray shapes of the same black light-absorbing material as the city itself. Smooth, menacing, utterly alien, yet possessing a predatory grace. Some were enormous, easily cruisers or carriers, hundreds of meters long. Others were smaller, fighter-sized craft, docked along magnetic pylons that rose from the floor like metallic trees. These smaller ships were scarab-shaped, compact and deadly-looking. Several of the larger vessels bore marks, scoring, impact craters, sections that looked melted or torn. Battle scars. They fought someone, Kyle observed grimly, his hand instinctively going to his sidearm. Or something. Amir moved closer to one of the giant manta ships, his faceplate nearly touching the shimmering field holding it aloft. The design philosophy, it's consistent with the glyphs, utilitarian, yet deeply symbolic. Look at the wingtips. They echo the spiral motifs we saw in the corridor. Sora ran her scanner along the edge of the field. High energy containment, stable but drawing significant power. And Commander, these ships, they're not just old. Radiometric dating from residual particles trapped on the hull plating. We're looking at dates potentially exceeding 50,000 years, maybe older. 50,000 years before recorded human history. While Homo sapiens were chipping flint in caves, this civilization was building starships and fighting interstellar wars beneath the surface of Mars. Deeper within the hangar bay, they found something else. A sealed chamber, the door marked with a complex circular glyph pulsed with brighter light. Sora approached it cautiously. There's a console here. No buttons, no screen, just a smooth surface with indented glyphs. Can you interface with it? Kyle asked. Sora hesitated. It's not like our tech. It seems passive, waiting for input but not digital input. More like resonance. She remembered the description of her specialization, resonance tech prodigy, an experimental field back on Earth, exploring harmonic frequencies and sympathetic vibrations as control interfaces. She'd always felt a connection to machines, an intuition about their inner workings. This felt like that, amplified 1,000-fold. Tentatively, she placed her gloved palm over the largest glyph on the console. Nothing happened. She focused, trying to recall the hum of the city, the flow of the symbols. She thought about the immense silence, the weight of ages. Still nothing. Then, a flicker of emotion surfaced. The grief for her brother, lost years ago, a sharp pang she usually kept buried. It resonated within her, a pure, clear frequency of loss and love. The glyph beneath her hand flared. Lines of light shot across the door, converging on the central symbol. With a deep, grinding sound that echoed the structure's hum, the massive door slid open. Beyond it lay not a control room, but something akin to a library or archive. Crystalline panels lined the walls, inert and dark. In the centre of the room stood a pedestal, and upon it floated a holographic projection, a star map. But the central star wasn't Saul. It was a binary system, 2 suns pulsing gently in the holographic display. And around them, worlds, dozens of them, linked by faint lines of light. One of those lines led outwards, towards another star system starkly alone in the projected void. A single, familiar yellow star. Saul. Corin stepped forward, transfixed. Is that Earth? Before anyone could answer, one of the crystalline panels on the wall flickered to life. Not with data, but with an image. A world of lush green jungles and towering bioluminescent trees under a double sunrise. Figures moved within it, tall, slender, recognizably human, clad in simple flowing robes. They looked peaceful, serene. Then another panel activated. It showed a different world, one ravaged by war. Shattered cities, orbital bombardments, figures in angular, armoured suits battling amidst ruins under the same twin suns. A third panel flared, displaying Earth. Primitive villages, pyramids rising from desert sands, recognisable continents, and then images of ships, not the manta rays or scarabs outside, but different designs descending from the sky, figures emerging interacting with the early inhabitants, Egyptian gods, ancient astronauts. They came from there, Amir breathed, pointing to the binary system. Fled something, a war, and they came here, to Earth, and to Mars. Kyle felt the weight of the discovery settle on him. This wasn't just an alien city. It was a lost chapter of human history, a cradle or perhaps a refuge. The implications were staggering. Humanity wasn't alone, and it wasn't even solely terrestrial. But the evidence of conflict, the damaged ships, the two contrasting worlds orbiting the twin suns. This legacy was complex, potentially dangerous. His duty, once confined to his crew and mission, now felt impossibly vast. He was standing in the heart of a 50,000-year-old mystery that redefined everything humanity thought it knew about itself. And the city, panel by panel, archive by archive, was just beginning to share its secrets. The weight of revelation pressed down on them, heavier than the tons of rock and regolith overhead. Humanity, seeded or exiled from a distant binary system, a vast Martian metropolis as a way station, Earth a later colony, or perhaps a forgotten outpost. The silent, watchful city felt less like a tomb and more like a paused recording, waiting for someone to press play. "Okay," Corin said, breaking the stunned silence, his voice attempting levity but betraying the underlying shock. "So, space Egyptians from a double sun system built Mars Vegas and maybe gave Earth the pyramid scheme. Got it. What's next on the tour? The casino floor? The all-you-can-eat nebula buffet?" Sora, however, was focused on the console she'd activated. The glyphs continued to glow, pulsing softly in response to her proximity. This console, it's more than just a door lock or an archive viewer. It feels like a primary interface node. The emotional resonance. It wasn't just a key. It felt like authentication. She tentatively placed her hand back on the surface, focusing not on grief this time, but on curiosity, a desire to understand. The holographic star map shifted. Lines brightened. Symbols flared around certain star systems. Text, or what passed for text in the flowing glyph language, scrolled beside the images. "Whoa," Corin breathed, stepping closer. "It's responding to you, Sora. Can you ask it something?" "I don't know how," Sora admitted. "It's not verbal, it's feeling, intent." She concentrated, visualizing the hangars, the ships. How do these work? How do they fly? In response, the archive panels flickered rapidly, showing schematics that looked like cross-sections of the manta ray vessels, energy flow diagrams, and glyph sequences that Corin instantly recognized as potential command protocols. Simultaneously, a section of the plaza outside the archive chamber began to glow. A circular platform rose silently from the floor, about 10 meters across. From slits around its edge, a soft, shimmering field similar to the ones holding the starships aloft flickered into existence. "Anti-gravity," Kyle stated, recognizing the principle if not the execution. "A transport skimmer." It activated, because I thought about flight. Sora looked bewildered yet intrigued. The city, it's interpreting intent through emotional and resonant frequencies. "Let's try it," Kyle decided. Caution warred with the urgent need to explore more efficiently. Walking could take lifetimes in a city this size. "Sora, see if you can guide it. Corin, keep trying to make sense of those glyphs. Navigation, power systems, anything. Amir, document everything. We need to understand what we've found." They stepped onto the platform. It felt solid, yet strangely yielding. As Sora focused, visualizing movement, a low hum intensified beneath their feet. The skimmer lifted smoothly, silently, a meter off the plaza floor. With Sora concentrating on direction, visualizing a path forward through the immense cavern, the platform glided forward, accelerating rapidly but smoothly. Flying through the vault of Theris was like soaring through a dream of impossible architecture. They swept past the downward-reaching towers, crossed the silent chasms on bridges of pure light, and peered into vast, empty amphitheatres carved into the rock. The scale remained overwhelming, humbling. Lights continued to pace them, illuminating sectors of the city as they approached, plunging previous areas back into a slumbering twilight. Fountains remained dry, plazas empty, but the feeling of dormant potential was palpable. Picking up multiple larger energy signatures ahead, Sora reported after nearly an hour of travel. Her brow furrowed in concentration as she guided the skimmer. Massive power conduits converging, and chambers, very large chambers. They navigated towards the energy convergence, finding themselves entering a district that felt distinctly different. The architecture was more severe, more utilitarian. Platforms held arrays of unfamiliar devices that looked like weapons emplacements. Complex metallic structures bristling with emitters and lenses. They passed more hangars, these holding only the smaller scarab-shaped fighter drones, nested tightly into magnetic racks that lined the walls like dormant insects. Some of these drones also showed signs of damage, blackened hulls, fractured winglets. Suddenly alarm klaxons, deep and resonant, echoed through the cavern. Red lights began flashing along the walls, bathing the severe architecture in pulsing crimson. Glyphs flashed urgently on nearby panels. "What's happening?" Amir asked, startled. "Multiple systems activating," Sora cried out, the skimmer wobbling slightly as her concentration faltered. "Energy spikes across this entire sector. Those fighter racks, they're powering up." "Security systems," Kyle surmised grimly. "Did activating the skimmer trigger a broader alert?" "Or maybe accessing the archive," Corrin suggested, frantically trying to decipher the flashing glyphs displayed on his wrist-mounted interface, linked wirelessly to Sora's scanner. "Whatever it is, the city thinks we're intruders. These symbols, they look like lockdown protocols. Threat assessment." From the hangar walls, several of the scarab drones detached from their magnetic pylons. Blue energy crackled around their forward emitters. They rose silently into the air, their multifaceted optical sensors focusing on the skimmer. "Evasive maneuvers, Sora," Kyle barked. Sora reacted instantly, focusing her intent. The skimmer banked sharply, diving towards the intricate cityscape below as bolts of blue energy lanced past them, impacting the cavern wall with explosive force. More drones detached, swarming after them like angry hornets. "They're fast!" Corrin yelled, ducking as another energy bolt sizzled overhead. "We need cover, and a defensible position." Kyle scanned the area, his tactical training kicking in. "There. That structure. Looks shielded, reinforced. Get us inside." He pointed to a squat, bunker-like building nestled between two larger towers, its entrance a heavy, glyph-marked portal currently sealed. Sora drove the skimmer towards it, weaving through architectural projections as energy bolts rained around them. The drones anticipated their movements, boxing them in. "The door's sealed," Amir shouted. "How do we get in?" "Sora, the console interface, can you access the door system from here?" Kyle asked urgently. "Trying." Sora closed her eyes for a moment, ignoring the chaos around them, focusing her will, pushing past the fear. She projected the feeling of sanctuary, necessity, urgency. The skimmer's console pulsed in response. On the bunker door ahead, the glyphs flared. Just as a drone lined up a direct shot, the massive portal slid open. Sora gunned the skimmer through the opening, and the door slammed shut behind them, cutting off the screech of energy fire and the sight of the pursuing drones. They were inside, plunged into near darkness, the only light coming from their suits and the faintly glowing controls of the skimmer. The resonant hum of the city seemed deeper, more ominous here. They found themselves in what looked like an ancient command chamber. Consoles lined the walls, dark save for the emergency red lighting. A large circular platform dominated the centre of the room, covered in dormant glyphs. "Status report," Kyle said, his voice calm despite the adrenaline coursing through him. "Skimmer is undamaged," Sora reported, her breathing heavy. "Door is sealed, heavily reinforced. External sensors show the drones are hovering outside, scanning." "I think I'm getting somewhere with the language," Corin said, pointing to his display. "The lockdown glyphs correlate with threat levels. We seem to have tripped a mid-level security response. But there are other symbols here. Command overrides, system resets, linked to that central platform." "Can you activate it?" Kyle asked. "Not directly," Corin replied. "It requires sequence authorization, like the archive door. It seems keyed to complex emotional states. The glyphs suggest concepts like sacrifice, resolve, legacy." Sora looked at the central platform, then back at the sealed door where the drones waited. She thought of the archive images, the peaceful world, the war-torn one, the ancient Earth. She thought of her brother, the grief still a tangible ache within her. But mixed with it now was a fierce determination, a resolve to understand this place, to protect her crew. Sacrifice, resolve, legacy. She stepped towards the central platform, placing her hand on its cool surface. She didn't try to replicate an emotion. She simply let her own complex feelings flow, grief intertwined with fierce protectiveness, fear woven with determination. The platform beneath her hand lit up. Glyphs raced across its surface, converging in the centre. Consoles around the room flickered to life, bathing the chamber in a cool blue light, replacing the urgent red. A low thrum filled the room as power surged. "Whoa!" Corin breathed. "System access granted. Sora, you just hotwired an alien command centre with feelings." On a large display screen that materialized from the wall, schematics of the city sector appeared, showing the drone locations, power flows, and something else. Something that made Kyle's blood run cold. Deep within the sector, far below their current level, another massive energy signature flared to life, far larger than the drones, larger even than the hangars. A symbol appeared next to it on the screen, a ring segmented, surrounded by complex interlocking glyphs. "What is that?" Amir asked, pointing to the symbol. Corin traced the glyphs on his display. According to this, they called it the Sky Gate, the path between stars. They hadn't just triggered the security drones, they had started the activation sequence for a Stargate. The activation of the Sky Gate sent a palpable tremor through the command chamber, a deep resonant hum that vibrated up through the floor. On the main display, the ring symbol pulsed with intensifying energy, drawing power from conduits that snaked through the schematic like luminous serpents. The city wasn't just waking up, it was preparing for departure. Okay, activating a potential interstellar transport system while killer drones are trying to break down the door might not have been Plan A, Corin quipped, though his fingers flew across the holographic interface projected from his wrist unit, cross-referencing the newly accessible data streams. Good news. Sora's emotional login gave us significant system privileges. Bad news. The gate activation seems to have triggered higher-level defense protocols. As if on cue, the display shifted, showing external views. The Scarab drones outside the bunker were now being joined by larger, more menacing shapes, detaching from previously unseen alcoves high in the cavern walls. These were angular, almost skeletal fighter craft, different from the manta shapes in the main hangars, clearly automated defense units. They began engaging the Scarab drones, streaks of energy fire crisscrossing the vast underground space. "Infighting?" Amir asked, bewildered. "Why would the city's defences attack each other?" Corin highlighted sections of the newly accessed data. Hypothesis. The Scarab drones represent a localized, perhaps sector-specific security system, maybe even one that's degraded or corrupted over millennia. These new fighters, they seem linked directly to the gate's activation sequence. A primary defense grid, maybe? Purging the lesser systems that responded incorrectly to our presence. Or, Sora suggested quietly, her eyes fixed on the unfolding battle. Maybe the Scarabs were the original defense, and these new ones are something else, something left behind by whoever damaged those ships in the hangar. Kyle watched the silent, deadly ballet on the screen. Whatever the reason, it buys us time. Corin, focus on the gate. What does it take to stabilize it? Can we shut it down? Working on it, Corin muttered. The glyphs are complex. It's not just engineering, it's almost ritualistic. There are sequences tied to celestial alignments, energy harmonics, and this. He projected an image onto the main screen. The twin sun symbol they'd seen in the archive, now intricately linked with the gate schematics. Amir stepped closer, his geologist's eye for patterns finding purchase even in the alien script. The twin suns. Look how they're positioned relative to the gate symbol, and these branching pathways. It's like the map in the archive chamber. Two primary destinations, maybe, linked to the two branches of, well, whoever these people were. He traced a flow diagram. It seems the gate requires alignment not just physically, but energetically, tuned to a specific destination frequency. Can you identify the destinations? Kyle pressed. Amir studied the glyphs, comparing them to the archive images. This sequence, he pointed, seems to correspond with the peaceful jungle world. The glyphs evoke harmony, growth, origin. This other sequence, he indicated a more complex, jagged set of symbols, matches the war-torn world. These glyphs suggest struggle, division, terminus. Origin and terminus, Sora breathed. Two paths for humanity's ancestors. Commander, Corin suddenly shouted, power fluctuations. The gate activation is drawing immense energy, but the flow is unstable. The battle outside, secondary explosions. They're damaging some primary conduits. If the grid destabilizes completely, the gate could overload. The resulting energy discharge. He didn't need to finish the sentence. A blast that could power interstellar travel, unleashed uncontrollably within a confined underground city. It would vaporize everything. Kyle scanned the chamber schematics Corin projected. Power regulation nodes. Where are they? Corin highlighted several points on the city map, deep within the sector, some in areas now crawling with the battling drones and fighters. There are primary junctions, but accessing them is suicide. There might be a master regulation conduit accessible from beneath this command chamber. It's a long shot, requires bypassing multiple safety interlocks. If it stops this place from blowing up, we take it, Kyle said decisively. Sora, can you open a maintenance access way? Sora, already anticipating, focused on the central platform where she'd initiated the override. She visualized access, repair, stabilization. A section of the floor near the wall slid silently open, revealing a narrow, dark shaft descending into the humming depths. A faint blue light pulsed rhythmically far below. Amir, Sora, stay here, Kyle commanded. Monitor the gate. Keep trying to understand the controls. Corin, you're with me. We need your interface skills to bypass those interlocks. Into the scary glowing basement it is, Corin said, grabbing a portable interface kit, just like summer camp. Kyle clipped a descent cable to his suit harness and hooked it onto a recessed anchor point above the shaft. He checked Corin's harness, then nodded. Maintain comms. Let's move. They rappelled down into the shaft, the main chamber shrinking above them. The air grew warmer, thick with the smell of ozone and the thrum of immense power. Below, the blue light intensified, emanating from a crystalline conduit easily 3 meters in diameter, pulsing like a living heart. Glyphs swirled across its surface. Access panels sealed with intricate locking mechanisms dotted the surrounding walls. "Okay, Big Blue is definitely the main power line," Corin confirmed, connecting his kit to a nearby interface port. "Now for the safety interlocks. These things are ancient, Kyle. Layer upon layer of protocols." He worked quickly, alien symbols scrolling across his display. Almost got it. It requires simultaneous manipulation of energy harmonics. I can handle the sequence logic, but someone needs to manually shunt the feedback loop at the precise moment. That someone, he looked at Kyle, has to physically override the circuit breaker. He pointed to a heavy lever-like mechanism set into the wall beside the conduit, glowing with contained energy. "When I give the signal, you throw that switch. Timing has to be perfect, or it could feedback pulse the entire grid." Kyle positioned himself by the lever. It felt warm through his gloves. He could feel the raw power surging nearby. "Ready when you are, Corin." "Initiating bypass sequence. Now," Corin shouted. Glyphs flashed wildly on his display. Harmonic stabilizing. Almost there. Feedback loop identified. Kyle, and now. Kyle threw his weight against the lever. It resisted for a terrifying moment, then slammed downwards with a heavy thud. The pulsing blue light in the main conduit steadied, the violent energy fluctuations smoothing out. The overwhelming hum lessened slightly, becoming a steady, powerful drone. "Did it work?" Kyle asked, breathing heavily. "Grid stabilized," Corin exclaimed, relief flooding his voice. "Gate power flow is steady. We just stopped Mars from becoming a new asteroid belt." Suddenly Sora's voice crackled over the comms, tight with urgency. "Commander, something's happening with the gate. The alignment, it's locking, but it's not pointing to the origin world or the terminus world. It's cycling through other coordinates, unfamiliar star systems. One of them. Commander, it looks like Sol. It's trying to lock onto Earth." The revelation hung in the subterranean air. The Skygate stabilized but now cycling through destinations, potentially locking onto Earth. Back in the command chamber, Sora and Amir watched the main display in stunned silence as the glyph sequence representing the target coordinates shifted, momentarily resembling patterns Corin had tentatively identified as relating to their home system. "Is that even possible?" Amir wondered aloud. "Could this gate reach across 50,000 years of stellar drift? The coordinates would be vastly different." "Maybe the system auto-updates," Sora speculated, her mind racing through possibilities. "Or maybe Earth was always a designated waypoint, its relative position constantly tracked." The implications were dizzying. A direct path back home, bypassing the months-long journey via Starship. But a path that could also lead from Earth, or expose Earth to whatever conflict had scarred this city and its creators. Kyle and Corin ascended quickly back into the command chamber, the immediate crisis of the power overload averted. "Report," Kyle demanded, striding towards the display. "The gate stabilized, Commander," Sora confirmed, "but its destination lock is erratic. It cycled past origin and terminus, and seems to be searching. We saw glyphs correlating with Sol system coordinates for a moment, but it moved on. Now it's settling." On the screen, the whirling symbols slowed, finally locking onto a new sequence, one that didn't match origin, terminus, or Sol. A complex, unfamiliar pattern pulsed steadily beside the activated gate symbol. "Where does that lead?" Kyle asked, turning to Amir and Corin. Corin cross-referenced the glyphs with the archive data. No direct match in the archive worlds we saw, but the root structure, it shares elements with the origin glyphs, harmony, creation, but also contains modifiers suggesting sanctuary, confluence, renewal. Amir traced the unfamiliar stellar configuration depicted alongside the glyphs. It's a trinary star system, unknown from Earth astronomy as far as I know. Sanctuary. Could this be where they intended to go? A refuge beyond the conflict? The external view screen showed the battle outside had ceased. The skeletal defense fighters hovered silently, while the damaged scarab drones lay inert. The gate chamber itself, deep below, pulsed with contained, stable energy. The path was open. They stood at a precipice far more profound than the physical edge of the city's abyss. Behind them lay the known, Mars, the Arclight mission, Earth, a humanity confined to a single solar system, ignorant of its sprawling ancient heritage. Ahead lay the unknown, a pathway across interstellar space, forged by ancestors fleeing conflict, leading to a potential sanctuary orbiting 3 suns. The choice was stark. "We could try to shut it down," Corin offered, though his voice lacked conviction. "Seal this place, hike back to the rover, assuming the storm ever clears, and report back to base. Let Earth decide what to do." "And risk someone else finding this," Sora countered, "or risk whatever threat caused the Terminus world finding us through this connection. We activated it. It feels like our responsibility." Amir nodded slowly. "This discovery changes everything. The history of humanity, our place in the cosmos. It's not just data to be filed. It's a legacy. Perhaps a destiny." He looked at Kyle. The archives showed 2 branches of humanity, estranged, one possibly destroyed or locked in eternal war. What if the sanctuary world represents a chance for reunification, or at least understanding? Kyle felt the immense gravity of the moment. His duty, always his North Star, was now pulling him in multiple directions. Duty to his crew, to the mission parameters, to Earth. But also a nascent duty to the truth they had uncovered, to the echoes of these ancient humans whose blood might very well run in their own veins. To return to Earth with this knowledge felt incomplete, like finding a map to El Dorado and turning back at the city gates. He thought of the damaged ships, the defensive drones, the bifurcated destiny shown in the archives. Sealing the city might protect Earth in the short term, but ignorance was a fragile shield. Understanding the past, confronting the legacy, seemed the only path to securing a future. Stepping through that gate was an unimaginable risk, a leap into potentially hostile territory, or simply lethal emptiness. But staying behind felt like a betrayal of the very spirit of exploration that had brought them to Mars. He looked at his team, Sora, whose unique sensitivity had been the key, Amir, whose scientific awe was tempered by profound insight, Corin, whose intellect and humour grounded them. They had faced the storm, navigated the impossible city, battled ancient defences and stabilised a stargate. They were no longer just astronauts, they were inheritors. The Arclight mission parameters were clear, Kyle said, his voice resonating in the quiet chamber. Establish a foothold, explore, report, but no parameter accounted for this. He gestured towards the pulsing gate symbol on the screen. Reporting this second hand won't convey the truth, the scale, the implications, and it leaves this power, this pathway, vulnerable. He met each of their gazes. Our primary duty is to the survival and advancement of humanity. Right now, I believe that duty lies forward, not back. We have stumbled upon the grandest mystery of our species. We have the chance to understand our origins, perhaps prevent a conflict that stretches back millennia, or find allies we never knew existed. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. This is not an order I can give lightly. It goes beyond any mission profile, but I believe it's the necessary choice. Our report to Earth will have to wait. Our exploration continues. He looked towards the schematic showing the Skygate chamber. Corin, can you interface with the gate controls from here? Ensure the destination lock remains stable on Sanctuary? Aye, Commander, Corin replied, already working. Locked and confirmed. Sora, Amir, grab any portable archive data possible and essential supplies from the skimmer. We travel light. They moved with renewed purpose, the debate settled, the path chosen. Within minutes, they were back on the anti-gravity skimmer, gliding silently through the now quiet sector towards the immense energy signature of the gate chamber. The chamber dwarfed even the grandest spaces they had yet seen. A colossal ring, easily 200 meters in diameter, dominated the space. It was constructed of the same obsidian material as the city, inlaid with glowing glyphs that pulsed in time with the structure's deep hum. The ring itself floated free, unsupported by any visible means, rotating slowly. Within the circumference of the ring, space itself seemed distorted, shimmering like heat haze over desert sand, but swirling with faint ethereal colours, blues, violets, golds. It wasn't projecting an image, it was the portal. Sora guided the skimmer onto a platform extending towards the base of the ring. The air crackled with contained energy. Looking into the shimmering portal was like staring into infinity. Kyle Vance stood at the edge, his crew beside him. The red dust of Mars felt a universe away. He took a final look back at the vast, silent city, the vault of Tharis, cradle and tomb, testament to a lost epoch. Then he turned towards the swirling light. "Lieutenant Kim, take us through," Commander Kyle Vance ordered, his voice steady, resonant with the immensity of the step they were about to take. Sora focused her intent and the skimmer moved forward, crossing the threshold from the known into the utterly unknown. The shimmering light enveloped them, not blinding but cool, silent, erasing the obsidian chamber from view. For a heart-stopping moment, there was nothing but the swirling colours and the feeling of transition, of movement beyond comprehension. Then, new light dawned ahead. They emerged not into darkness, but into the soft, multi-hued glow of a sky illuminated by 3 suns, one golden, one pale blue, one a gentle crimson, casting long, strange shadows across a landscape unlike anything they had ever imagined. The vault of Tharis was behind them. The journey into humanity's forgotten past and uncertain future had truly begun. The gate shimmered, waiting, a path between worlds left open.